Hi guys, stress response and stress management is chapter 10. Stress is the brain's non-specific response to any demand made upon it. Stress is natural. We have evolved with a capacity to respond to internal and external demands. Stress and responses to stress are essential to understanding psychiatric disorders and providing mental health care. So let's just get started here. Early exposure to stressful events sensitizes people to stress later in life. These exposures are referred to as adverse childhood experiences. You may have heard them called ACEs. They can include any form of psychological, physical, and sexual abuse, violence against a parent, particularly the mother, or living with people with substance use disorders, mental illness, or even incarcerated parents. ACEs occur more frequently than many of us imagine. The nurse's role is to understand the connection between stress and mental illness and help reduce that stress and promote a healing environment, facilitate coping, and develop coping strategies for the future. The earliest research into the stress response began as a result of observations that stressors increased the incidence of physical disorders and made existing conditions worse. Stressors can be acute or they can be chronic. Walter Cannon referred to acute stress responses as fight or flight. The fight or flight response is the body's way of preparing for a situation that individual perceives as a threat to survival. This response results in increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, increased respiratory rate, and cardiac output. Hans Selye defined stress as a non-specific response of the body to any demand for change. He incorporated the fight or flight response and expanded on the theory of stress known as general adaptation syndrome. According to Selye, the general adaptation syndrome occurs in 3 different stages. The first stage is alarm or acute stress stage. This is the initial brief and adaptive response to the stressor. Information is sent to the amygdala, which then interprets the event as dangerous and sounds the alarm to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then responds in one of 2 ways. It activates the sympathetic nervous system and activates the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis to stay on alert. The second stage is the resistance or adaptation stage. This is where sustained and optimal resistance to the stressor, recovery, repair, and renewal can all occur here. And then the third stage is exhaustion stage. Resources are depleted as we attempt to resist the stressor proves futile. The stress may become chronic at that point. So we've gone from an acute all the way down to a chronic because the resources we have, we've just proven them futile. We've depleted them and now it becomes a chronic stress. Hans Selye also noticed that individuals become energized by both negative and positive events. These reactions are distress or eustress. Distress is a negative draining energy that results in anxiety, depression, confusion, helplessness, hopelessness, and fatigue. Stressors such as a death in the family, financial overload, or demands of school can cause distress. Eustress are normal physiological positive energies that motivate individuals and result in a positive feeling and purpose for movement. So examples of eustress are vacation, playing your favorite sport, or the challenge of a new job. So the critique of the generalized adaptation syndrome theory It's different types of stressors bring different patterns of response. It is the degree of stress that is important. GAS reflects male responses. Females tend to respond by tending and befriending, which is really just a survival strategy that emphasizes the protection of the young and a reliance on the social network for support. Also, women are much more vulnerable to stress-related disorders. This may be due to females being more sensitive to even the low levels of corticotropin releasing hormone, which is a peptide hormone released from the hypothalamus in response to stress. So what are the mediators of the stress response? When we think about stressors, they can be physiological, including environmental conditions, whether that be trauma, the extreme heat, the extreme cold. They can be physical stressors such as infection, hemorrhage, hunger, or pain, or even psychological stressors such as divorce, loss of a job, debt, death of a loved one. Mediators of stress also can be the perception. It's not always the stressor itself that determines a response, but the perception of the stressor that determines the person's emotional and psychological reaction to it. Individual temperament can be colored by a variety of factors, which makes one unique with specific strengths and vulnerabilities. Strong social support can enhance mental and physical health and act as a buffer against distress. Many support groups are out there for everyone. Quality and fit are always factors to be considered. Video conferencing such as Zoom has really expanded tremendously, especially during our pandemic, as isolated individuals could come together to address stressors in their lives. It's likely that this crisis will reshape the way that support groups are offered in the future. Culture. Each culture not only emphasizes certain problems of living more than others, but also interprets emotional problems differently. Although Western European and North American cultures tend to subscribe to a psychophysiological view of stress and somatic distress, this is not the dominant view in other cultures, a number of whom express distress in somatic terms and actually experience it physically. And the last mediator is spirituality and religious beliefs. And a lot of times this helps people cope with stress. Studies have demonstrated that spiritual practice can even enhance the immune system and sense of well-being. Some standardized screening tools to measure stress include our social readjustment rating scale. This scale measures positive or negative life events and assigns a weight depending on its severity. The purpose of this scale is to assess a person's vulnerability to stress-related disorders. Recent Life Changes questionnaire is just a revised version of the social readjustment rating scale. People often cope with life stressors in a variety of ways. Coping styles that people can develop to help manage stress can include health-sustaining habits. This might include medical adherence, proper diet, relaxation, life satisfaction, especially with work, families, hobbies, religion, and nature, social supports, and effective and healthy responses to stress. Poor stress leads to increased physical and emotional conditions. There is not one single stress management technique that feels right for everyone. Practicing relaxation techniques will help your patients reduce their stress levels also. So when we think about biofeedback, this provides immediate and exact information regarding muscle activity, brain waves, skin temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, and other bodily functions. Deep breathing exercises focus on breathing slowly, deeply, and evenly. And box 10.2, page 165, walks you through that deep breathing exercise. Guided imagery focuses on pleasant things or pleasant images to replace those negative or stressful feelings. It can be audio recordings specifically for patients and their specific situation. Progressive relaxation eliminates muscle contractions by deliberately tensing groups of muscles as tightly as possible for about 8 seconds and then releasing the tension that you have created. And the last one is meditation or mindfulness. Meditation trains your mind to develop greater calm and then using that calm to bring penetrative insight into one's own experience. So we think about yoga as being really good meditation. Mindfulness is being in the moment and paying attention to what's going on around you. Other ways to relax include physical exercise. Again, yoga, walking, biking. This causes a release of endorphins that lowers our anxiety and promotes relaxation. Cognitive reframing. This is an attempt to change the individual's perceptions of stress by reassessing a situation and replacing those irrational beliefs. Journaling also allows for a therapeutic release of stress and can ease anxiety, worry, and obsessional thinking. And the last one there is humor. A lot of people will use humor as a way to relax. And that concludes chapter 10, short and sweet. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or we'll chat about it in class. Thanks, guys.